I
But
have to watch what I play, what film reviews I may or may not watch, if kids are around, if I don't have
right,
headphones in.
right, and that therein lies a problem. And I mean, and the fact is, it's especially sad when you're having to do that with, say, a Disney film these days, right? Like it used to be that you could go put on a Disney movie for your kids and be fine, right? Whatever else you might think of the company, at least the stuff they were putting on the screen wasn't scandalous. But then something, of course, changed several years ago, and it became like indoctrination and corruption on screen for your kids. And that's also, by the way, why WDW Pro has a video out right now talking about how they put it out this morning, I think, or yesterday, about how they're going over the numbers, how they've lost $1 billion in their movies this year. Not just like the last 9 movies or whatever people say. No, it's this year that they've lost $1 billion at the theater.
Right. And
And
even
there's
just
a
a few
reason.
years ago, they were able to put out like Moana, which I
Mhm.
actually thought was fantastic as a
I never
movie.
saw it.
In spite of, so I mean,
I think
there
the
is
last one
kind of
I think the last one I saw was Brave, I think.
yeah, and that one had I wasn't so happy with that one for a number of the
Well,
messaging mostly.
wasn't that one the sort of the undermining parental authority one?
Yes, and it was even where that was a kind of a complaint I had with the original animated Little Mermaid. She gets her way in the end in the book, whereas in the book, she spoiler alert for a 100-year-old book, she dies in the book as a consequence of but to make a heroic thing to make up for what she had done wrong, right?
Mhm.
And then the cartoon, well, she actually, I think it was the prince that did a heroic thing, steers the ship into Ursula, kills her, and so then King Triton says, all right, humans aren't that bad, and he makes his daughter, basically rewards her for almost completely destroying everything. And I didn't like that particular element. So Brave was a similar thing that way, where it undermines parental authority. The dads made it look like all the dads are made to look like idiots, um, and in the end, she gets what she wants,
Mhm.
right? And that she does have to have an arc, and she does have to learn some sacrifice and accepting things, but she still got what she wanted, and it was kind of like a half-hearted sacrifice that way when you see the full conclusion. Um, Moana was different. There's a lot of it's within the backdrop of Hawaiian kind of pagan belief and
Mhm.
things like that. You have Maui's shape-shifting demigod, the Hawaiian version of Hercules, basically. And it's really well done and tastefully done all the way they do various things. And there's a good bit of humor in it. There's never anything off color, I don't think, unless I entirely missed something. I don't think there
Mhm.
was anything. The Rock does a couple of good musical numbers in that. It is just an enjoyable movie, and I don't mind my kids want to watch that again, and that sort of thing. Other ones, though, I mean, there's so much you have to be on your toes for. You can't trust Disney, and so no wonder with Disney we're watching. Um, it's like watching a relative, an elderly relative with Alzheimer's, just losing it one step at a time. And you
Well,
think it is almost painful watching this company that used to be the beloved, untouchable family entertainment that is being dismembered in in real time, losing one faculty after another.
and then there's the other thing too, right? Where it's gotten to the point now where you look at the slate of movies they've got coming out later in the year, and you can tell that Snow White's going to bomb. It's going to be a catastrophic failure for them.
They've
They
forgotten nothing and learned nothing.
right, and they are. It's because, as the leaks that some of these other channels are going over have said, they are ideologically driven to the point where they've elevated their political beliefs as a religion.
Mhm.
So they can't apostatize from the woke religion. They can't undo these things. So they have to put out Snow White. They have to make it so they get embarrassed and what drive their stock down and down and down to the point where it could be that their stock loses so much value that somebody could just do a hostile takeover of Disney,
Mhm.
which
Right.
it sounds absurd, but the Disney stock price is less than half of what it was a year ago.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
No end in sight really for how far down they're going. And of course, because
mhm.
they're going to keep pushing this out. All their other companies like Marvels, they are going to put out the Marvels, and that's going to kill them.
I
Because
can't wait for Star Wars to put out the Ray sequel.
yes,
As if anybody who
oh, and
I'm
it
an
will
old
lose
fashioned
money.
Star Wars fan. I'm the guy who
Yeah.
years ago had most of the old Star Wars novels before Disney bought the company. I was the guy they expected to come see a Star Wars movie 5 times and buy merchandise for and everything else. But I, remember realizing that I had essentially an attachment that was unhealthy to Star Wars, and I needed to dial it back. And God granted me my prayer on that by unleashing the Force Awakens, which was just a paint by the numbers without any of the soul of A New Hope. And then The Last Jedi, The Last Jedi followed by Solo was what did it for me.
Right.
I haven't even seen The Rise of Palpatine. I haven't seen it.
Right.
And you have to understand, my favorite Star Wars character is actually Emperor Palpatine. If you want to see a cartoony, over the top portrayal of Satan, you're gonna have a hard time topping Emperor Palpatine.
Right.
And I just didn't bother. I was like, no.
It's the Palpatine bit. I don't know, the whole Ray Palpatine and the art. None of it made sense. And it's of course, you had too many cooks in the kitchen, too many writers, and too much ideology in the background. I don't know why it was on my Twitter feed, and I ended up just watching it for the sake of it. I didn't watch Rebels, so I have no idea who Ashoka's supposed to be in any of the canon or whatever, or if she's part of the canon, if she's added in. I think Rebels was originally Lucas. I might be wrong though.
The Rebels, I don't know, but Ahsoka comes from the Clone Wars cartoon. She was,
okay,
and I had a hard time with that. I couldn't get into it because you had this Star Wars character in Anakin Skywalker who was not trusted at all by anybody, and they gave him an apprentice, which doesn't fit.
Doesn't make sense.
No, and I know that she survives Order 66, but then again, so did about half the Jedi Order from the sound of it.
Apparently, yeah, because you got to keep bringing up these people. Well, I watched this trailer for Ashoka, and I'm just thinking back to that picture of Kathleen Kennedy with the T-shirt, "The Force is female." I'm like, yeah, I guess it's still female. And I guess there's some other animated Star Wars that someone was reviewing and say, hey, in the second season, every story is about female something. And
that's why they call that's why over at Nerderotic they call it the MCU.
Right.
And
so She Wars or but yet so again, Solo lost money. It's first Star Wars movie to lose money, and this Rey movie or the Apprentice or the Acolyte, they're going to lose money, and then it's going to be it's tragic. But I mean, Last Jedi I think is what caused that.
Last Jedi is what caused it, but really, the reason everything Disney touches now turns to crap is because the brand is dead. Disney is a zombie corporation. Right. They don't know yet that the brand is dead. The theme parks, they're not as empty as people make it sound like, but they are much emptier than they should be, especially now at peak season. People going back to school and apparently money on their cruise lines, which were also a big bank for them. Obviously losing money at the box office for anything that they put out. It's a zombie corporation, and they're dedicated to ideology to the point where they're going to drive that stock price down. And it would be funny if some ultra rich billionaire conservative guy bought Disney in a hostile takeover. And didn't turn it into like
it would look like when the divine Elon bought Twitter, and then the left was freaking out, even though he's not even half the caricature they made him to be. I wish he was actually.
But
it'll be like that too.
Yeah, and because at some point someone's going to buy Disney, if only so they could have all the Fox properties they own that are good, and all the the Marvel backstock and the Star Wars backstock and the rights to all the classic Disney movies. Even if they and then just have the Disney name as look, we're putting out an animated movie, and put the Disney name on it.
If they do that, could they please put out Pecos Bill and not from that Roy Rogers bit and not airbrush out the cigarette? it's so obvious that he's making a cigarette, but they've airbrushed it out of the scene entirely when he's going to go lasso.
That's not the only thing that I've caught Disney doing. My wife and I decided I'd show her Adventures in Babysitting from the 1980s. Did you ever see that movie?
Yes, but it was
one of those schlocky 80s movies that people forget about until you mention it, and they remember it from their childhood. And I showed it to her, and Disney, the one Disney has on streaming is the TV version. They took out the insults, like a kid calls another person that word, one of the words I use on my channel to cover up when I say James Martin lifestyle, that kind of stuff. Instead of calling the word that We're talking about a Homo sapien. You take the first part of that word. He calls him that. They took that out of the movie.
Wow.
They changed it to something else. I don't remember what it was. And they did it with a couple other things too. It was like the TV edit, right down to the overdub that doesn't quite match up with the rest of the dialogue.
Right.
So yeah, Disney
Yeah.
is the great Satan of in the entertainment business, and the bad things happen to them couldn't happen to a better company.
Right.
But why don't we